Hello and welcome back to the channel. We leave Rome and the province of Lazio to enter Tuscany, one of the most tourist areas in Italy. We will first visit Montemerano, a small surprise that was not on our itinerary, to head within our journey to Pitigliano, considered as the small Jerusalem of Tuscany. And if you like our videos, do not forget to like, subscribe and activate notifications so that you know when we upload a new video. After visiting Rome and its surroundings in the province of Lazio, we moved to the famous region of Tuscany, one of the most famous and visited in Italy. At first we planned to take a bath in the waterfall of the Molino, where the famous thermal baths of Saturnia are located. But as you can see, they are entirely witnessed by people enjoying their waters. So we decided to go back on our way and visit a small village that we saw when we headed to the thermal baths. This small village, settled on a hill, is Montemerano, which for us was undoubtedly a nice surprise. As for parking, you will not have a problem, as you will have 2 free parking, of which, as always, we leave you the location in Google Maps. The history of the village dates back to the Middle Ages, and there are indications that it was an extension of land owned by the Brandeschi family, later becoming a beautiful medieval village. We enter Montemerano by the Porta del Ponte or del Rosario, and we arrive at Via Italia, the main street of the village, where there are shops, ancient underground cellars, and beautiful closed portics, and from which are branched the numerous streets that allow to enter, get lost, and discover this beautiful town. From one of these alleys, at the end of a steep climb, after crossing the Porta del Castello, we access the picturesque and beautiful Piazza del Castello. We access a square with stone houses and full of flowers that transport you in time. Although it is called Piazza del Castello, in it we will not find any castle, but a set of ancient buildings and small characteristic squares, which gather around the main square, the Old Arms Yard, and which is undoubtedly the most symbolic place of the village. In it you will find, among others, the Palazzo, which was the residence of the Brandeschi or Palazzo del Podesta right above the Porta del Castello. At the end of the square, we find the Piazzetta del Forno, a small space, which takes its name from the old presence of the community oven. Next to the Piazza del Castello, we find the Piazza del Campanile, named for the presence of a bell tower. In the Piazza del Campanile, we also find the Church of St. Lawrence, a church earlier than the 12th century and that was unconsecrated at the end of the 18th century. From the Piazza del Campanile, passing through the Church of San Lorenzo, after crossing the beautiful arch of the Porta della Canonica, we arrive at the Chiesa di San Giorgio, another symbol also of the village of Montemerano. The church is an example of Sienese art, dating from the middle of the 15th century, and which was born as a church outside the city in the year 1300. We leave Montemerano by the Porta di San Giorgio and turn to the left surrounding the wall, to enter again to Montemerano by Porta la Buca, a small step through the walls, and that in itself is not a door, but an opening that arose when it was no longer necessary to defend the people from enemy attacks. Here again we started to walk the precious streets of this village, losing ourselves to its streets and small squares. And so we ended our visit to Montemerano, a beautiful jewel that we had not planned to visit, but that thanks to chance, we had the opportunity to discover before going to Pitigliano. Pitigliano, like Montemerano, is considered one of the most beautiful villages in Tuscany, and you should definitely visit if you visit this region. As for parking, you have payment options or the free option that we find next to the cemetery, and that in a short walk takes you to the historic center. Despite being one of the most beautiful villages in Tuscany, it is not so visited in mass due to its location. While other villages are more concentrated in areas such as Val d'Orcia or near major cities such as Florence or Siena, Pitigliano is further away, and you have to go from ex professo to him if he is not on your itinerary. Unlike other villages in Tuscany, you are not settled on a hill, but on tuffo or volcanic rock, which make you find yourself on something like a cliff, and that from different viewpoints gives us a beautiful panorama. After parking next to the cemetery, we access Montemerano by the Porta della Cittadella, and we enter Piazza Garibaldi, where we find both the town hall and the tourist office. From here, on the Via Cava, we can already see one of the symbols of Pitigliano, the Aquedotto Medicio, an aqueduct built between 1636 and 1639, and which has 15 arches, 13 small and 2 large ones, from which we will have a beautiful panoramic view of the surrounding area. We continue via Cava, and we arrive at the Piazza della Repubblica, and on the left of the square, we find the Fontana del Set Canal, a monumental fountain with 5 arches, and that feeds directly from the aqueduct. Its construction dates back to 1545. Just in front of the fountain, we have one of the symbols of Pitigliano, the Palazzo Orsini, which was built between the 11th and 12th centuries as a convent, was acquired in the second half of the 12th century by the Aldobrandeschi family, who made it their residence. On the other side of the square, we find another view, in which we find a bronze statue, dedicated to the hard work of the farmers and their faithful companion. From Piazza della Repubblica, we enter fully into the stars of Pitigliano streets, and from different panoramic terraces, allow us to delight in the beautiful natural environment that surrounds us.
Now that I'm looking back, I can see all the signs I tried to fill in the cracks that were spread in my mind, but I was all out of hope, lost in an endless maze. The emptiness had unfolded just like a void, but you broke the coldness somehow and lit up a flame. And ooh, I was done feeling hopeless, screamed out loud because it felt impossible.
Following the publication of the papal bulls in 1555, Jews living in the surroundings of the pontifical state were forced to leave their homes and take refuge in Orsini County, choosing Pitigliano as their new home. The good coexistence between the inhabitants of Pitigliano and the new Jewish community led to the creation of the Jewish ghetto, a neighborhood with some of the most typical constructions of Jewish culture, such as the synagogue, the kosher slaughterhouse, the cellar, or the oven. But unfortunately, with the arrival of World War II and the Nazis, most of the Jews left Pitigliano. We continue our walk by finding places like the Chiesa di San Rocco, the oldest church in Pitigliano, built between the 12th and 13th centuries. The truth is that it is a real pleasure to walk through the streets of Pitigliano, which, as we said, due to its geographical location, are not as crowded with tourists as other villages of Tuscany, allowing to enjoy this idyllic environment. Walking through its small streets, flanked by stone houses and beautifully adorned with flowers. We arrive at Piazza Gregorio 7, where we find the Duomo of Pitigliano, the Cathedral dei Santi Pietro e Paolo, and on the outside of which, above all, stands its bell tower, with more than 30 meters of height, originally created for military purposes. The cathedral was built in the early Middle Ages in the 15th century, undergoing renovation starting in the 16th. Behind the late Baroque-style facade, we enter the interior, also in Baroque style, with several works of art, and in which two magnificent 18th century retables of the Rococo painter Francesco Zuccarelli stand out. And in the cathedral, we end our visit to Pitigliano, which along with the beautiful Montemerano, are a beautiful prelude to our visit in Tuscany.